Hello to our lovely listeners. Welcome to Mind Matters, a podcast where we talk about the more shitty aspects of student life because not everything is rainbows and butterflies all the time. So let's talk about us because shit happens. I'm Jade, a second-year student of creative business from Zimbabwe, and with me today I have Anthony and a special guest, Dominica. Today we will be covering speaking up in your team and how it affects us in various ways. Because at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of students figuring everything out and trying to make our way in the world just like you.
All right, thank you, Jade. So to kick off this episode, let's talk about our baggage. But first, a short introduction. I'm Anthony, the second host of this episode. And as for our guest, Dominica, could you perhaps introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, of course.
And the listeners.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Dominica. I'm from Poland. I'm a second-year creative business student. And that's all.
It's all good. Yes. Would you say that you're pretty good with confrontation?
It kind of depends. Because first, I'm kind of a person that if something is going wrong or someone is not doing something, I'll just take over the task and deal with it later, which I know is an issue because it doesn't really, it gives me more things to do. So when I'm comfortable in the team, I will speak up. But if there are people that will not give a crap about it anyways, I think I would keep it to myself and just continue till the point that it gets so bad that it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Me too.
But I think, I don't know, for me, it's a little bit reversed in the sense that if I do not really like my team members or if I don't know, I'm not really friends with them or not close with them or don't like mix with them or gel with them very well, then I think I'm more likely to confront them than if I do like them. Like if I feel like I get along with my group, like the people in my group I consider, well, not to be my friends, but like we get along and we have a sort of connection, I'm less likely to say anything about their work or to speak up in that sense, rather than if I didn't like them, then I will just not really care and just be like,
That is
Totally
true, but also if I have the feeling that if they are not even my friends, but if I know them, I know how they will react to even bad feedback, and I know that they will not get mad at me because it's just work, and we kind of are trying to keep the friendship and the work separate. And if there are people I have no clue about, they might just sit there and be mad at me and not do anything anymore, you know? So that's also the problem I encountered working with some people.
Oh, well, Dominica, I have a question for you. When did you feel like the most fear to speak up in a team? Like, did you have ever a situation like that?
I think that team was during one of our modules, CB2. You were also a part of that team, and I think that I felt so comfortable with you guys that even I knew that, again, that you will not get mad at me if I do give you feedback or I'll speak up. But also that team, we didn't have that many problems, so there wasn't really that much opportunity to speak up from being angry, more speak up because someone is doing something great. I don't know if that answered the question, but that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like a fear to disturb the whole piece. Yeah, I could relate on that sometimes, because you don't want to disturb like the whole piece with it.
No.
And that's also something really difficult because sometimes you don't know how to react in a certain way, and that can, because like if you react in a certain way, it can create conflict, and that's quite confusing sometimes.
We had also teams that there were fights because someone was not speaking up and another person was, and that creates just a problem. Yeah.
let's talk about this whole like phenomenon of speaking up in your group in correlation to mental health, which is that it creates such a frustration like inside of you, especially if obviously introverts are less likely to speak up in their teams than extroverts. But if you do not speak up and you have a really like serious problem with people in your group that, let's say, aren't doing their work, or people that you feel don't treat you how you should be treated, like, how does that make you feel? For me, like, if I can't say anything, it's making me really mad, and it just makes the work that I'm doing, like, so much more, I don't know, difficult.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the people that I'm working with, and I can't say anything. Well, I can say something to them, but I'm not saying anything, and it just ends in me going to complain to other people about them, which is really just not helping the problem. But, you know, sometimes that's how it goes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have the same feeling.
For me, it definitely affects the stress, which then affects my mental health. Because if I'm frustrated all the time, I'm getting stressed because things are not being done because I'm frustrated, and it kind of leads to the process of, in the end, nothing is done. My head is not in the place where it's supposed to be, and that honestly sucks. But on the other hand, when I do speak up, I sometimes start to feel bad, so it also affects my mental health.
Yeah.
So that's for me, I would say.
I also recognize it. It's like you get like too scared from things sometimes because of the stress. So I feel like I get scared being with a group by having by having not good communication with them and not speaking up that often. But well, let's go further. As you might have already known, music is often very much involved with mental health. For instance, listen to a sad song all day after a breakup, right? Well, today our guest, Dominica, has brought us their special song who they can resonate with whenever they are struggling mentally. So, Dominica, what song did you bring?
For me, that song is This Is the Life by Amy MacDonald. It's very peaceful. It's kind of sad, but not sad, but it just calms me down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that an old song?
I'm not sure when is it from. I feel like it's not the newest one. Yeah.
And why would you choose that song and not another song?
Because I kind of feel that the words are quite powerful, and it's also connected to an event in my life that's rather sad, or not even sad, but it's just connected to an event in my life.
So it connects you, like the song has just a connection with yourself, and that's why you just feel happy with it.
So let's talk about facts. Both Anthony and I have done some desk research on the topic to find some interesting facts for you guys. And while we formulated quiz questions that are going to be multiple choice, so if you're listening to this, maybe see if you can get the right answer. So let's get right into it. Okay, so my question for you guys is, what do you think is the main cause of conflict? And A, values, B, information, or C, relationships?
I think it's information.
What about you, Anthony? What do you think?
Quite difficult, but I think values.
Incorrect. So actually the main cause of conflict is information. I didn't know that. I thought it was going to be relationships actually, because I was thinking clash of I don't know. But information is actually the main cause of conflict, and that makes a lot of sense because people are always arguing over, oh no, that's not true, this is true. So
and also, if you don't have enough information, that means you don't really have communication in it.
Yeah.
So you can fight over, you have a part of it and then you add something, but two different people add something and it's a different information and they start fighting about it.
I think so. Also, this is a way of communicating. You're always passing down different kind of information, so it's basically makes sense. But I never thought about it like that. Well, I will move on to my quiz question. What is the name for the fear of confrontation? Is it A, conflict phobia, B, Catagalphobia, or C, avophobia?
The A?
Conflict phobia?
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like the easiest one.
I'm going to go for the complicated name.
Well, it was A. Conflict phobia, the easiest one, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense, of course. Like, it has the word in it already.
I can think of a few people off the top of my head that maybe would be terrified of speaking up in a group, you know?
Definitely.
Like, I think there's a difference between not speaking up to keep the peace and for your own well-being and actually genuinely being so terrified to speak up. I really, that must be horrible.
It can have a really big influences on you, the whole acting, you know, you being as an individual. I think it can harm a lot of things. Your mental state, but also like your being social.
Yeah, but also from my past experiences, we did have people who never spoke up, which I don't know if it was caused by a phobia or if there was a different reason, but definitely it did affect our whole group work, because since they were not saying anything, but we could see that they're not happy or they were just not doing anything because they were pissed at us, it still affected what we delivered in the end or how we worked or anything connected to group work. And I'm not saying that those people are bad or anything like that, but it definitely affects not only them but also the whole group, which they should not go over their limits or anything like that. But I feel like in a group, you should trust each other, and then maybe they would have the courage to just speak up.
We found a professional in the field of mental health who was willing to help us out and share some of his tips on how to deal with speaking up in your team. So now let's talk about the pro tips. Our professional is Henk Santinga, and he has been a therapist for 12 years now. He's 68 years old and comes from Groningen. His hobbies are fishing and taking care of his wide variety of birds. So let's hear what tips he has for us today.
For this week's episode, here are the following tips I have for you on how to speak up in your team. Be confident in yourself. Know what you're talking about. Listen carefully to others and understand what they mean. And lastly, stay calm and don't overthink it.
Well, I think it's quite important to be confident, right? And to know what you're talking about, because most of the time, sometimes I can relate with that. I just speak stupid things. I just say stupid things. And that's just...
I just speak.
like
no,
this,
I feel,
you know?
I feel you on that one.
Yeah.
It's really important to stay unemotional when you are confronting people. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that one.
I do, because the emotions bring the hard part of it. I don't know, even when someone, or you start crying, or you start shouting, or your way of saying it already changes, and the perception of it.
Yeah, especially anger. Like if you are mad, something that I'm really trying to do, but don't always do all the time, is that if I'm mad, I'm trying to not speak to anyone, go like somewhere else, gather myself, and then come back and try to speak logically and, you know, with a clear mind. Because if I am mad,
you cannot think clear.
I can't do it. I will just shout and scream, and it has almost nothing to do with the group work now, and it's all just about how I feel, and I feel mad, and I'm just not going to communicate what I'm trying to say in a way that is going to make other people listen to me.
So I think that's why it's quite important to not overthink, and also like to give good feedback to each other, because that will solve a lot of conflicts.
Yeah, and as Hank mentioned, know what you're talking about. I don't know if you guys do the same thing as I do, but like, I'm going to use an example, like a relationship, right? When you are mad at your partner, and I always have a lot of things to say, and I've actually sometimes wrote down like bullet points in my notes because I know that as soon as I get there, I'm going to forget what I need to say and what I want to say, because as soon as they bring up one, like I've already had the whole conversation in my head, you know. As soon as they bring up one thing that variates from what I expected them to say, now I've just lost it. It's all gone.
So true.
And I always make bullet points. So I'm just like, I want to talk to you about how this, and this. And I feel like I've never really had that big of a problem in a group, but if I ever had to confront my group, I genuinely think I would make a list in my phone. I don't know if that's my red flag or if that's a toxic trait. Like I have a list of things that I want to talk to you about. Like I don't know if that's particularly good or not, but I mean, it means that I know what I'm talking about, right?
I do have to admit I did that once. I wrote down what we have to talk about. It was more feedback on also the practical things or like writing whatever. But I wrote it down because if I would go there, as you said, my mind would go blank and there is no talking about anything. So the bullet points actually helped. It's maybe
you
not
get nervous, you know? You get nervous and you're just like, oh, damn it, I've forgotten everything that I want to say. Yeah. For the final part of this episode, let's talk about quotes. So, Anthony, what quote have you brought for us today?
Yeah, the quotes. Well, my quote is about, of course, speaking up. It's speak up because the day you don't speak up for things that you matter is the day your freedom truly ends. Well, basically, it's like maybe a little bit general, but in... it can be like a thing, your freedom in a group, you know what I mean? So that means that you are ruled, well, that you are not thinking about your own emotions, not thinking about your own values. So sometimes it's just really important to speak up, because if you don't speak up in a team, well, you will not have any decisions in it too.
And you can't fix what you don't say anything about. So all you're going to do is just be miserable the whole entire module. And probably your friends are just going to get absolutely exhausted about hearing about your horrible group. But what are you doing to fix it, you know?
Nothing.
Like at some point you have to take it into your own hands.
Yeah.
I mean, mine is kind of similar. But mine says, don't avoid conflict to keep the peace, because you'll start a war within yourself. Speak your mind, release judgment, and do it with love. So... basically all that you're doing by not saying anything is just making yourself mad. And that is the kind of behavior that causes a build-up. And totally then you will just eventually, if you even get to that point, just burst, and it's all going to come out in the wrong way. Something that could have been resolved early on has now become so much of a bigger problem. Also because you've been thinking about it in your mind and you haven't said anything.
Also
so you're arguing with yourself. You're arguing with yourself and your values and your thinking, promising yourself, oh no, it's better if I don't say anything. But communication is key, and actually I personally appreciate it if I feel like my group members are comfortable enough with me to actually say to me, you know what, you're doing terrible and this work that you've done is not good. And when that is said to me, I'm always immediately offended. If I'm being honest, I'm always immediately offended. I'm like, oh, and very defensive. But what I've learned as I've been at university longer is that it's really nothing personal. Well, that was it for this episode. We hope you found it somewhat relatable, and we hope that it helped you guys in some way, because I think it kind of really hits home for all of us, this episode. Speaking up in your group, it's terrifying. I think almost everyone that has done group work has had to, probably had this internal kind of conflict in their brain. Should I speak up? Should I not speak up? So we hope that it helped you and that our tips from Hank were useful. Thank you so much, Dominika, for joining us today.
Dominika.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
And of course to our listeners, thank you for listening to our episode.
Next time we will be talking about making friends, so stay tuned.
Goodbye. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.